record. Okay, welcome to the healing workshop for the Europeans and the Australians. And we'll be dealing with healing. We have 2 hours. And I'll be giving some of the concepts of the Course in Miracles, though you don't have to know about the Course in Miracles to be on the workshop. And none of us ordinary people know fully the Course in Miracles anyway. Only the author really understands it fully, I think. And we'll have time for some exercises and some time for sharing. We pair up in rooms. And we've got pairs already, so the pairs will be in a room by themselves. So you'll be sharing with your partner, and I'll be sharing with Christiana. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll introduce the workshop with a few keynotes, and we'll be exploring some of them in much more detail. And actually, I thought I'd start with a story of a healing that I was doing a little while ago with someone in the Point, a waitress down the cafe. Someone just had a sigh of relief at that point. And she had ringing in the ears, both ears, 5 years of ringing in the ears. And she came to see me. And while I'm sharing it, there's so many things in this story that sort of echoes what healing is and resistance to healing and Course in Miracle principles. So it's a great story in that sense. So her story was 5 years ago, she was in a relationship that was falling apart, and she was really trying to keep her man, so to speak. And he wanted to go to a rock concert. That's the last thing she wanted, but she didn't want to displease him, for her own interest of not losing the relationship. When she got there, it was a terrible noise, and she wanted to leave immediately. But again, that would upset the boyfriend and maybe the relationship. The following day, they both had ringing in the ears. I'm going to mute because there's a few sounds coming through. Don't worry, I'll just mute you all. You can always speak again when you want. It's like being God here. You can strike people off and stop them speaking. And I can see why we separated from heaven. The power is just amazing, Anyway, back to my story. So she was very angry about this guy. He caused the ringing in my ears because the following day, 2 days after the rock concert, his ringing disappeared, but her ringing stayed, which is very interesting, I thought. So we worked a bit with, victimhood and persecutors, and gently pointing out it was her decision to go to the concert. It was her decision to stay. And could she take some responsibility? And over time, she gradually began to shift and then suddenly said, this is weird. One of my ears has stopped ringing. And the other one is sort of ringing about half strength. And that one had a stronger ringing. Oh, Ingrid, we have a friend coming from my Mighty Network. I didn't know she was coming. Just a moment, we'll let Ingrid in. I'll pause because here she comes. Ta-da! Ingrid, how nice to see you. A surprise guest. You're muted, my friend.
Hi.
I haven't seen you for a while, Ingrid. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I don't want to be interrupting because now it's 9:13, right?
No, it's 13 minutes past, so that's all right. I was just starting a story, and I'll just summarize the first bit, and then we'll go on. Someone who came to me ringing in their ears. They got it at a rock concert. They didn't want to go, they didn't want to stay, but they did to keep their boyfriend because their relationship was falling apart. And he was the enemy. He was the cause of the ringing. He had ringing, but it only lasted a day. Her ringing had been going on for 5 years now. So I got up to the point of saying that she began to realize that she did have some responsibility with this. She could have said, no, I'm not going. And when she arrived, she could have said, I'm leaving. But her fear of relationship breakup. And then when she got to that point, she said, this is very weird because one of my ears has stopped ringing. And the other one, which was ringing louder, was sort of ringing about half strength. So we talked some more, but she still had leftover anger. And he was still a cause, okay, I'm part of the cause, but he's also the cause too. So I gave her a copy of my forgiveness book, and she was due to leave Australia. And a couple of weeks later, I got an email. She said, I was reading your book and I started to cry because I know what you're trying to do, Michael. You're trying to get me to forgive him, aren't you? I said, yes. He said, but I can't, I won't, I can't. And we just said, well, it's that terrible line in the course, would you rather be right or happy? And she wanted to be right, and it cost her a ringing ear. And that's not unusual. We hang on to our grievances, don't we? And healing can be resisted so strongly. And there's a line in the course says that you could be healed of anything instantly, but for some of you, the shock would kill you. You think, what? Well, to be healed instantly, you might have to give up your victimhood instantly. If you give it up in 6 months, then it takes you 6 months to heal, you see. You may, if you want instant healing, it might mean giving up your justified anger instantly. And, most of us are very attached to our justified anger and our victimhood. And as we say, rather right than happy. So she was willing to have the ringing. In fact, another ringing in the ear story, I had a woman who was so keen, and that's a good sign. She flew from Holland to Scotland for a healing session because she had ringing in her ears. Hers was quite different. It was that what she got in touch with, she had to change in a major way the direction of her life. And it was fearful because it would upset certain people. It can cost a job. It could cost a relationship. But she got deep into it and she said, I don't care what happens. I must walk this new path. And again, the ringing went away. That ringing is, if you go between the ears, you've got the chakra in the middle. That's to do with intuition and logic. And her intuition was saying, you must move on. And the logic says, this will cost me too much. And it can affect the eyes, can affect the ears. But that was it. But when someone flies, all that way for a session, they're serious and they're ready for change. So that was good. So I wanted to start with that story because it's got so much of the Course in Miracles in it. And, I don't sort of heal people, but I help them to heal themselves by changing their minds, by forgiving what's there. Hey, Ingrid, while you're here, we just said why we came. So I'll give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. I can drink my tea and you can say why you came.
Yeah, I just woke up, as you might all see. So I just ran down the stairs and were able to log on. Yeah, there are some new people here I can see. So I'm a Course in Miracles student for some years now. And I've been part of Michael's group and enjoying it very much. And then life had so much stuff happening on Sundays, so I haven't been participating for a while. Yeah, I'm from Norway. It's snowing outside. I guess it's different all over the planet where people are gathering.
There's 27 degrees here in Australia.
Yeah.
Evening.
Yeah. So yeah, I have ringing in the ears. Talking about ringing in the ears.
Really?
Yeah. As I'm sitting here, and I've also been aware that ringing in the ears is increasing.
Okay.
It's a lot about it in the newspapers in Norway. I thought it also had to do with smart meters and AMF, like it can be a reaction to that. But still, it takes on that quality, so it's a message in any ways, I guess.
Yes, it gets a bit more complicated then, doesn't it? Where there's an environmental factor. It's the first time I've heard. I mean, you're more of an expert on this than me. Has there been some research to show that electromagnetic radiation that's too strong can cause ringing in the ears?
Yeah, it is like one of the known symptoms. And also I experience people who are, if they're out in the woods, or if they change their environment after a couple of days, the ringing subsides.
I see.
But that could also be an indicator that they were in another environment, that they were supposed to be in that environment. I don't know.
Mm.
I think it's very complicated when there is environmental factors, but still, I guess it's what you say, that it could also disappear. You can also have healing from this. I don't know.
Right. In the end, I mean, the Course has said we still decide what happens in our body.
Yes.
I mean, we're not Supermen. I mean, if you put your hand in a fire, then you'd scream. But then once I met the guy who had the world record for walking on hot coals, and you saw the photos when they were preparing the fire for him. They had 18-foot rakes. What's that? 6-meter rakes. They couldn't get any nearer. It was so hot, and they were raking it. And the interesting thing was, he was a baker in America, and he read the same book I read years ago. It was a book on breathing, the Yogi Science of Breath. He found his book in a dustbin in New York. I bought mine on a bookshelf. He studied it and he applied that book. And I asked him what happens. He says, well, I walk around the fire, Michael. I have a can of Coke and a cigarette, and I'm waiting for a moment. And when it comes, I throw that away and I walk across the coals. The clothes should actually catch fire. It's that hot. There's doctors at the other end, and I can't find a mark on his foot. And that's what I mean. It's still us that decides. But he says, Michael, when I'm at home and I'm not in that space, in my driveway, it's gravel. I can't walk barefoot on that gravel. It hurts me. Yet he can work on those coals, which will make his clothes catch light. And I study people like this. There's like Prahad Jani. He's been tested extensively. He hasn't eaten or drunk anything in 80 years. And his last test was, he was locked up for 2 weeks, closed circuit television, 724. 37 doctors were monitoring him. They check him the first day, because if you're eating the day before, there's changes in the body when you stop eating. He didn't have them. He asked for water just to rinse out his mouth. They never gave him any water to wash in the first week, unless he could somehow get it into his body. He just asked to go out in the sun during the day a bit. He seemed to get his energy from the sun. Other people claim this. And at the end of 2 weeks, he'd had no food, no water. I don't think he goes to the toilet at all, hardly. Maybe once every 6 weeks. I think what it saves on toilet paper, it's got its advantages, this. And they said at the end, we can't explain it. We watched him 24/7. We gave him no water, no food. He left the way he came in, healthy, happy. And there's others, and others that don't sleep. And there you see the power of the mind. The body's a puppet, and it tells you, we tell the body what to do. Now, we believe we get old and aging and get weak and tired. And the body says, I can do that. I can get old, aged, wrinkled, tired, and ill. I can do that for you, no problem. I'm just a puppet, which is the way the Course in Miracles refers to our body, a puppet. So if we're not at that advanced stage, keep away from strong electromagnetic fields. And that's a good idea. But as you advance, you have control over everything. So there you go. Okay, what I'd like to do is return to the keynotes before we do a little exercise. And these, of course, are from the Course in Miracles, which I think everyone here knows about. Healing is the only purpose of the world. It's our daily classroom of forgiveness. That's it. It's the only purpose the Course sees for the world is to heal yourself. Nothing else. Now, you've got to do something here. And there's a section in the text that says you have to walk a path, but none of the paths go anywhere here. So I happen to be walking at the moment a teacher path, and sometimes Christiana's doing a translation path, and others are on mother paths, others are on channeling paths, others are serving in shops. They're all on sort of paths. And you can become the best channel, teacher, translator, but it won't make you happy. But the path is where you learn your forgiveness. So the course doesn't ask you to heal the sick and feed the poor, but you could end up doing that because it's your path of forgiveness. There's no difference between that and someone who's a gardener or a road sweeper. You just get your lessons that way. And health, it's defined, quote, health is inner peace. That means if you're dying of cancer and you're in peace, the course would decide you're 100% healthy. You see, it's mind, not body. And to the rest of the world, that's crazy because health is a well-functioning body that lives a very long time. And most of our medical profession is trying to keep you living as long as you can. One of my wives, what was it? Forgot the number now, died at 45. And previous to that, she was very healthy and had very quick, aggressive cancer. And then a psychic friend of mine got a message that she was so happy. She'd finished her lessons for the moment at Findhorn. And she was so happy to be on the other side and she could help me better there. And the cancer was perfect. I chose that. You get this other picture when you start to explore this field. Once ago, we had someone on the island here, same thing, 45 roughly, I think, died. And through a channel, I heard recently, as she came through, she said she could not be free here. And the only way to be free, she said, was to die. And I'm so happy I did that. I wasn't making progress here. And now on this side, I am. But it's left a lot of people here in grief. And I thought, I bet she's really happy on the other side. And she is really happy. But the people left behind are in grief. I was in grief when my wife died, but there's a bigger picture to all this. And when you look at what the Course says who we are, eternal, formless beings, we were never born and can't die. We just occasionally appear in bodies and then leave them and put on another one and leave them. There is no death. Bodies die, people don't. But that's not taught in this world. Unfortunately, not yet. And what's the real healing? It's the separation from spirit, separation from God. Most of us believe we are separate. We're alone. We get lonely. We fear death, pain. We've forgotten who we are. And that's what the Course wants to return us to. And once we know that, it doesn't matter if we die tomorrow. One of my teachers, Krishnamurti, said, if you're locked up in prison and you're going to be shot tomorrow, no escape, and you're upset and you're worried, well, that's stupid. You got today. You haven't been shot today, and tomorrow you'll be shot. Nothing you can change. It's just you're thinking about it that's upsetting you. I know it's easy to say, but these are the principles that the Course is using. Another thing it stresses about healing is that we're all rather too busy here. First, we get caught up in materialism. We need money, power, you name it, sex, drugs, rock and roll. But we need to move more into being and not doing. After all, we're sort of called human beings. And it's when we start slowing down, being and relaxing, then the guidance can come in to guide our lives, and it really helps our bodies as well. The source of healing in the Course is the Holy Spirit. My teacher, Ken Wapnick, used to call that the memory of God. We can't quite forget where we came from. We've done a pretty good job, but it's that source. It's like we have a lighthouse. It's always in our mind, always shining, and we can turn to it any time, and that light, that love will heal us. And that's what forgiveness brings. It reveals that part of our mind. So healing of the body is really a side effect of forgiveness. In the psychotherapy pamphlet, it says, that the unforgiveness in our mind is mirrored in our body. And a careful examination of the bodily problem will show the type of unforgiveness in the mind. That's not always easy to do. And someone who was good at that is Caroline Mace, which I used to work with. She had the gift of knowing what thought form was producing what disease. Louise Hay, I think, was the first one to make that famous. She had a little booklet a long time ago. And in Caroline's book, Creation of Health, which she co-wrote with a brain surgeon, Norm Shealy, she lists them out and she allowed me to copy them out. So, particular thought form produces this particular problem. If you're interested in that, email me and I can send you a PDF of that little booklet. So physical and mental illness are reflections of unforgiveness in the mind. And we live in a reflective universe. We're being shown the contents of our mind all the time. So there briefly is some of the keynotes that we'll work with. Do you have any questions or any sharings on this subject?
Yeah, I have some sharings on that subject. As I've been dwelling into that subject and with that approach for the last 10 years, giving it my best. I've been learning a lot. And I also feel that it can, in sometimes, add to the burden of being sick or having some sort of handicap.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's easy to feel that it's both ways. It's empowering, and on bad days, it can be easy to feel that you create this yourself, so you can have the ego blame game coming in.
Exactly. Like you guilty sinner. I told you were a sinner, and now we see why you're a sinner, because you're thinking this way and thinking that way. Exactly. Yeah, it's always looking for a way in to sabotage everything.
Yeah, so it's been easier when I'm just talking for myself, when one start to get hold of the ego voice and is able to separate them. Who's speaking now?
Yes.
Yes. But I think this approach is super interesting and has also been for me super frustrating and has taken up maybe lots of my consciousness. So it's very interesting, and I'm happy to participate today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to say a bit more about that. In my sort of history of working with people, some people are not interested in tool about where the cause is, but it sort of appears in the session, by itself. Other times it's difficult to actually work out what's going on. But what is then said is that the issue that's causing the disease, which may have come from another life, is still showing up each day. So though you can't link the two together, the forgiveness issue will keep appearing daily in some area. So the simple approach is then to forget, looking up tables and things like this, but to say, oh, look, here's a forgiveness issue right in front of me. And it could be the one connected with the disease. So these tables are useful because what they do is say, well, if this is true, I'm creating this by the way I think. However, I don't know which thoughts are doing it. And if that's the case, then just forget all about the table and just deal with the daily classroom. And as you forgive that, you will automatically heal the problem. As I say, even if it's past life, it's hasn't been solved. So the past life issue then comes into this life. And often with sort of rather serious chronic problems, you find the issues there when you were born. You come in and you choose a family that will actually highlight it. If you're dealing with perhaps a strong victim complex, you could get born into a family that, boy, really makes you feel like a victim. It sort of pushes it in your face. And then you could go either way, become more of a victim, or say, hey, it's something for me to look at here. I remember when I was getting a reading from Ananda, that's a guide of Tina Spalding. And I was told from elsewhere that I didn't receive the normal parental love. And Ananda said, but don't blame your parents. You chose them for that reason. I said, what? Yes. It's an issue in other lives. And you wanted to really work with it and find, like more the love within than dependent on the love without. And so you chose the difficult childhood that would push it into your awareness at some point. I don't think I got it in my childhood. I got it later. Like, oh, you can't find the love you really want in the world. Comes and goes, it might be quite nice, but, the peace that passes understanding, the love that passes understanding, can't find it here. This is the classroom. So it seems I sort of chose a rather difficult arena to try and get that, because I know I can't find that in a person. I got a wonderful wife and friends. I have her friends, but what I really want, I won't be able to find in a person. They're not meant for that. They're your classrooms of forgiveness. Sorry to be so unromantic here, but they're there to bring your stuff up and forgive them and find peace together, Yeah, I don't think I get many romantics in my workshops, or if they do, they tend to leave, I think. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, let's switch over to a few pictures to help illustrate a few things. Move that out of the way. So we share the screen. And I thought I'd give you a little challenge and help for the workshop. Doing this workshop, judgments will come up at times against yourself and others. Quite normal. That's the way the ego lives. That's its food. This is a quote from the Course in Miracles. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. This is the thing you will fail the quickest on. So prepare to forgive yourself very quickly here. So this is the radical forgiveness that some people talk about. Now, I've tried to give a little bit of help, which I can find helpful. So when the judgment comes up of yourself or others, you could say, no big deal. What's new? Yesterday I wanted to kill my mother. Today I want to kill my boyfriend, so what's the big deal here? That's what it's like. Oh, there you go again. Or it might be you're beating yourself up. God, you're a coward, successful. You could do better than that. This is a line from the Course. Forgiveness offers me everything I want. Here's a line from one of my forgiveness exercises, which I find helpful. And when I want someone to be different, to remember, I have no right to say, you must be different. We hate when people want us to be different. Doesn't mean you accept their behavior. You may say, you don't have to be different and I won't be with you anymore. You could say, I don't know, to Stalin or Hitler, I have no right to say you must be different, but I'm not hanging out with you. Goodbye. So you don't abandon common sense. And the Course says, remember to smile at your ego. There it goes again, judging me, judging others. Why it's so addictive is that this is the ego's food. If you stop judging, the ego will just start to shrivel away, but your identity will shrivel away with it. Oh, I thought I was this or that. I'm not sure what I am. It'll even get to the stage of, well, I always thought I was a mother, but is that really my role? I thought I was a teacher. Oh, I thought I was a channel. And it all starts to fall apart. And judgment will start bringing it back again. You're judging how good a teacher you are and compare yourself to other teachers and you criticize them. And the ego's loves that. It's its food. So there's a big resistance to this. You'll get to the stage where you say, I identify as a man or a woman. I'm not talking about transgender here, way beyond that. And then, am I really a body? Someone said I was eternal formless spirit, And then you end up with, who am I? You knew while you were judging. Here's a bit of an overall picture from the Course in Miracles. After the separation, the one mind that we all actually live in, it seemed to fragment, to have a mind that had three parts. Down here, we got the decision maker. That's a term from my own teacher, Dr. Kenneth Wapnick. This is the part of the Christ, the creation of God, that fell asleep and thought, I wonder if there's something better than unity. This oneness is amazing, but what if I was God? And this is the birth of the ego, the idea of separation. The mind fractures. This is the thought of separation, the ego. Hey, we can do better than oneness and God and unity. And the Holy Spirit says, that's impossible, but if you want to dream it, you can. And if you want to listen to me, I'll teach you forgiveness. You can wake up from the dream and know your eternal formless spirit. He says, don't listen to him. He works for God, and God's very angry. You know the Old Testament, all those floods and locusts and punishments he sent you? Well, if you start listening to him, he's going to grab you and take you back to God for your punishment. So just listen to me. We're going on all right here. We'll have some fun in time and space, and keep judging, of course, otherwise you'll lose my hand. And we say, fair enough. And then we forget all this. And here we are. We think we're in a body. We think the brain thinks. The Course says the brain does not think. It just processes thoughts from up here. And there's no up, there's no space here. So that's why it's drawn as a puppet. And the mind says, lift the left hand. The mind says, die. The mind says, have a heart attack. And the brain just processes it. It's a complex piece of meat. Some of the extraterrestrials refers to this as a meat suit. We're walking around in a meat suit because our reality is formless spirit. Just thought I'd slip the ETs in there quickly. So we get all these ego thoughts of these things are real. There's accidents here. We definitely need our money. Poverty's terrible. I want good health and friends. And this is the ego saying, you will find happiness in the world. And the ego, it's the ego's home. Seeks pleasure, avoids pain. Decisions, well, we got a choice of two counselors here. Most of the time, we listen to this guy. But as we progress on the path, we start to listen to this guy more. And that's the mark of our progress. But when we stop listening, we're still with this rather kill or be killed thought system over here. That's why some, more elevated spiritual teachers are so wonderful. If they slip that way, there you go. And this is where you hear the abuse of students and sex and taking the money. And then they slip back here again and deny it, of course, and their students will deny it. But once you're there, you're there. The ego is the same in everyone. So the Course in Miracles is achieve the miracle, which is listen this way, not that way. Forgive. Holy Spirit will tell you how to forgive if you ask. Forgiveness heals this body. Judgment makes this body ill. It's that simple. This decides when the body will be born. This decides when the body will die. There's a line in the Course that says, no one dies without their own consent. So if you want to heal this body and heal the mind, more and more we have to choose spirit in our mind as our guide. Always there, like a lighthouse. And the ego is always there. It's a 24/7. These two are there. But with time, it's so much healthier and happier to forgive and listen to this and drop judgments that more and more you go there. And then one day, in the Course, it's called entering the real world. This disappears. And the mind's just filled with the Holy Spirit. And that means there's no decisions left. Just think of a life without decisions, because everything will just come from here. There's no choice. You know what to say, where to go, what to do. If for some reason you have cancer, perhaps because you chose to leave, you just smile and say, seems like I'm going to die. No problem. I know there's no death. I know bodies come and go. Any comments on this from anyone? I think I may have achieved brain death again. Don't blame me, it's Jesus. He wrote this stuff. What we'll do, we'll move on to an exercise, and you need just a small piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. So I'll give you a bit of time just to grab something. It doesn't have to be very big. Piece of paper each. Everyone got a bit of paper? Looks like they have. What I you do is make up a table like this. Don't use these words here. And in the corner, say, think of a person you know well. There's things you like about them, dislike about them. They could be alive or dead. Could be a partner, a parent, someone you know quite a lot about. And up here, you write the qualities I like about Tom are, the qualities I dislike about Tom are. You put the same name in. And then underneath, on the left, you'll put down the things you like about this person. Tom's gentle and sensitive and caring. I like the way he dresses. He's a good listener. What I don't like about Tom, this is where you lose your peace. It's not just a simple observation. It upsets you that he's anger, he drinks, he smokes, he's lazy, he's jealous. Just take 2 or 3 minutes to try and put as many things as possible in each column. The more you write, the more you learn. You all have about 3 or 4 in each column, or put your hand up if you want some more time. Okay, have some more time. Anyone need some more time? Okay, what I want you to do is go to the top here and cross out this name and write your own name here. Okay, well, this is an exercise in projection. On the left-hand column, you have those qualities. Otherwise, you couldn't recognize them in another. Now, the other person may have these qualities stronger or weaker than you, but they are there. On the right, which is more the subject of the workshop, you also have qualities or attributes like this, though the form may be different. And this is why you're upset. The course says you're not upset about other people. They're only upset because they remind you you have things in yourself that upset you. You don't want to admit they're there. Now, objections can start quite quickly in this column, but we'll just come back to the first one. This can be a harder column to accept than this one, because sometimes people have such a low opinion of themselves, they can't really see much good in them, but they are there. So, in fact, this column may actually be more important than this one. So there's a bit of homework in here, after the workshop to sit down with this, Perhaps you can ask your partner, am I really gentle, sensitive, caring in these examples or whatever you've got written there? Ask your partner. It's more fun when you get on this side, of course, if I've got these. Anyway, you can work that out. So when I say different form, I don't smoke. He smokes. That can't be right. Then you have to dig a bit deeper. He just sits next to me. She sits next to me and blows smoke in my face. He doesn't really value me. He knows I'm a bit upset about smoke, and yet carries on. And you allow it, perhaps. So here we're mirroring a lack of self-worth. You're not standing up for yourself. You're allowing this to happen around you. They may not change, but you can say, well, if you light up the cigarette, I'm leaving the room. Carry on. I'll go outside and look at the sun or listen to the birds. Remember the girl who had the ringing in the ears? I'll put up with it because I don't want to lose my boyfriend. Anger. She's very hostile and shouts a lot. You haven't raised your voice in your life. You're this quiet, gentle man putting up with this woman that screams at you from time to time. But inside, there is a silent anger. And you might use it. You might be so upset you don't speak to her for a day, which drives her mad. It's a very powerful use of anger. So you have it, but in a different form. Jealousy. Well, he's always jealous. Anytime I look at another man, he gets jealous. I don't feel that way. But you find you're jealous because you're on a spiritual path and you find people ahead of you and they seem much more peaceful and kind and they've done the course longer and they seem to be doing better. Oh, you're jealous of spiritual advancement. So you have to, when it doesn't stand out, you have to spend some time, because if you didn't have that, then you wouldn't be upset over your boyfriend's jealousy because it doesn't remind you of your spiritual jealousy. You see, you either have upset or compassion when you're with the other person. There's nothing in between. You see their call for love. You see why they're angry because they're frightened, and they drink because they're in so much pain, and they use cigarettes to escape, and they've lost their motive in life, so they're lazy. It's all a call for love, and your compassion comes out. You don't know how that will be, how you respond. But if compassion's not there and your lack of peace, you're angry, there's red flags waving. There's something I haven't forgiven in myself. Any comments or questions? Notice you don't forgive the other person. That's not in the Course in Miracles. The only forgiveness is for yourself. The forgiveness of the world, the forced forgiveness, is you forgive another. And don't do that again. I'll forgive you this time, but don't you do that again. They're missing the whole point. The ego hates this exercise. The ego says the problem's in the world. Look at the way I'm treated. Anyone would be upset. It's the last thing the ego wants to look at. It can even get upset on this side because it thinks you're nothing, has a very low self-opinion of you. And so it says, well, don't think you've got anything good about you. Get you both sides. You turn to the Holy Spirit and says, you're still the holy child of God. You were created perfect. You're all love, all power, all creativity. This belongs in a dream. Please let me wake you up from it. So neither column will be of interest to you. How can this compare to what God created? Remember Jesus in the Bible, everything I do, you can do, and even greater things can you do. That means one day we'll be on Jesus even. Of course, he'll be beyond us again. He keeps moving too. All of this is within the dream of separation. And it's hypnotic. It's where most people live. It's living a virtual life. You're not living the life you were meant to live, and you live a virtual life and you have a virtual death. Then when you wake up on the other side, you go, oh boy, I believed it all again, didn't I? But we make progress. Then one day we don't have to come back to Earth. It's a rather tough, dense school here. We'll go somewhere else. Lessons will continue, but much more pleasant, much more creativity. But this exercise is at the heart of the Course in Miracles. It's at the heart of forgiveness. It's at the heart of peace and happiness and a healthy body and an abundant life. Nothing to share. I can move on.
Michael, I have a question.
Good.
And I'm really thankful that Tom gave me the hit to think about a person I really have problems with and I don't like. So I love this exercise. We did it in one as well. And this time it was really hard for me to find qualities I like. There are only 5, but there's a long list of qualities I dislike.
Right.
And I know that I only can, and I did forgiveness work with these people every time when she popped into my mind, and when I'm in connection with her. And I'm open to all of this. This is the first time that I really have problems to accept what I'm reading. So, for example, I wrote, she's in our team, and every time I explained to her, she didn't listen. She do other things, and she don't deliver quality. And I think I'm completely different. I try to listen. I'm asking, and I'm perfectionist. So I want to deliver 110% at minimum. Can you please help me to go through this whale?
Yes. So she doesn't listen.
Right.
And she's not much of a perfectionist. She's a bit careless in her life, in the way she moves. So I think she's a bit laid back, or she's not too concerned perhaps what people think of her. Would that be true?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, yeah.
I think so. That's my impression. I think deep inside her, it's important for her, but how she behaves in this dream, I think it's not important for her.
Okay, well, I'll come up with some ideas. I'm not saying these are true, but I start brainstorming. Now, sometimes the person can be the opposite to us, and then they remind us of something we're uncomfortable with. So you said you're 110% perfectionist, and she's not that at all. Now, there may be a part of you that's saying, why am I 110% perfectionist? I'm not saying any of this is true. I'm just going to throw it out. So is it very important what people think of me? Do I really, really strive to be so perfectionist that I'll be thought well of? Or I won't be judged, I won't be accused, I won't be attacked. Look at her. She doesn't seem to care. Oh, Ingrid left the waiting room and has come back in again. Just a moment. So it can mirror the opposite, that she's reminded you to say, well, why don't you relax a bit? You don't have to have 110%, you know? Who are you trying to please? Yeah, are you trying to please God or dad or your boss? Was that the way you got through childhood? If you're 110%, you got a little bit of love from mum and dad. That is an area to look. She's the mirror, the opposite, but she's mirroring something more in the unconscious, perhaps, you know is not quite right. So look sometimes for the opposite. She doesn't listen. You mentioned that. And you could be a very good listener. But do you always listen to the Holy Spirit? Are you the one that's in control in life? When something goes wrong, you turn to your mind. You don't turn and listen to the Holy Spirit. You listen to the ego instead. You're listening wrong. You don't suffer from her not listening, but another area of your life you're not listening. So I just threw out about a dozen things there. If any of them stuck, then, maybe that's somewhere to have a look.
Thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you. You haven't turned the screen off, so good. I haven't lost a person yet. Thanks, Andrew. We just lost Evan. Okay. Anyone else want to comment about this list?
Yeah, I had a funny coincidence. Maybe I didn't listen properly what you said, but I wrote down the name of a friend I like a lot. So I have a long, long, long list of the qualities I like about, and a shorter list of qualities I dislike. And it was nice to see that with, well, I mean, I know this exercise since ages, but to see the qualities I wrote down on the left side, there is not a single quality where I can say, that's her and not me. So I thought, oh, great, to have it written down. It's a bit astonishing, but nothing where I feel, no, no way, that's me. And on the other side, it's somehow the same. I have a sense, yes, I can see that. That's also me. It's a bit. One is a bit a strong one, but I feel like I can take it, and it's nice to sit here and to be able to can just take and say, yes, that's true. That's
Oh, it's beautiful. That's, you
yeah,
know, yeah, carry on.
no, I'm done. Thank you.
You know, the bit about learn to smile gently at the ego, like, oh, there it is. Because that's really a big step home where you can look at the negative side and say, okay, that's around here at the moment. That's not going to last, you know. I understand that, and I'll be compassionate to that side of myself, you know. And that just dissolves it as well. That's pouring love into that column, and it softens and softens and softens. But the ego likes to hit that column and say, look, I told you were a sinner, and now we found the evidence. Go away and feel shame in the corner. So to smile at it and laugh at it and say, okay, that's wonderful. Okay. Following on from that, let me rearrange my screen so I can press some buttons here. So maybe that button. That button. Yeah, sort of applying this to the world more, looking at denial and projection. We look on the left where the real problem is, and then we don't want to see that in ourselves. It's uncomfortable, it's painful. So we project it out and say, this is where the problem is. And that explains the world. That explains the newspapers. That explains the mainstream media. And I've just put a few things. Most of it's in the unconscious mind. Though as you start to progress on this path, you begin to pick up your unconscious and go, oh. So you have perhaps maybe from your childhood, a desire for vengeance. You're so badly treated. You want to get back at people. You want to murder, actually. I don't want to see that in me. So you get very upset when you read about murderers in the newspaper or on the television. And they must be locked up and the key thrown away. Take it back. Take it back. Forgive that. Now, you may have spiritual poverty. You've never thought really about anything more than material things. And when you come across physical poverty, you get really upset. That could happen to me. But what it's mirroring is that you haven't developed the spiritual side. You're so fixated on the world of matter and material and money. I think it was Mother Teresa, when she came to the West, she said, in the East, we have physical poverty, but you in the West, you have spiritual poverty. Far worse. You can be in poverty and happy. You can have billions and be sad, and usually are. Suppressed anger, you don't actually think you're anger. Conditioning of women in many parts of our world is you mustn't be angry, you must be a polite girl and not show this, otherwise no one's going to marry you. Control it. And then you meet hostile people that really upset you. Look at their terrible, terrible behavior. No compassion for them. Why? Because you're raging inside. You see it sometimes at wartime. You get gentle Mr. Smith from next door joins the army and find that he's paid to kill, rape, murder, and he goes mad. It all comes out. He's not going to get punished. And nothing to stop the suppressed anger. You may have a strong desire to control others. You want the world to be exactly as you want it to be. You want your relationships to be exactly this way. You want the wall to be blue. You want everything. And then you come across a Stalin or a Hitler, and you hate these people, monsters. But they wanted to control the world, and for a time, they succeeded. And then you're so happy when they're captured, killed, or they die. But they were great teachers. They were showing you have that desire as well. We're walking around in a hall of mirrors. You're never upset for the reason you think, the Course says. Once you move along on the path of forgiveness, the only thing you have for all of these is compassion. This is, of course, the level of Jesus. But that's where the level of peace and health is. Nicely summed up with this one. This is a quote from the Course. On the left, we have a famous cartoon character who's come to the amazing recognition. We have met the enemy, and he's us. He's discovered the dictator inside, the poverty inside. And here's your recipe for saving hundreds of years. Learn this and learn it well, for it is here delay of happiness is shortened by a span of time you cannot realize. You never hate your brother for his sins, but only for your own. Whatever form his sins appear to take, it but obscures the fact that you believe them to be yours, and therefore meriting, quote, a just attack. And when Jesus, the author of the Course, says, shortened by a span of time you cannot realize, he's talking about thousands of years here. Hundreds of lives, no need to be taken. I mean, just sit with that at a moment. What the promise, these last two diagrams before here, if believed in and followed, would save you perhaps 100 lives. Coming back again and again and again. Blaming the world, blaming the parents, blaming your body, blaming the weather, blaming the government, blaming Big Pharma, blaming Dr. Fauci, blaming the people who locked you down. Years ago, I was given guidance from a friend. I used to turn to her each year because I loved her guidance. And it said, Michael, you'll never escape this world. He saw I was trying to escape the world. He says, you'll never transcend this world until you learn to love everything in it. Love Hitler. Love the approach to COVID and vaccines. Love the parents who gave you no love. Love the dictators. If you don't, you'll keep coming back until you do, until you see their call for love. Their compassion is being called for. There's the line of the Course about the Holy Spirit's judgment. Very simple. Holy Spirit only sees two things when he looks at the world. Either people asking for love or people giving love, which is the smaller percentage. So there's your formula for saving another 100 lives. Ingrid. Hang on, have we got more people in the workshop? I've got two Ingrids here. Ah, Ingrid, you've morphed. Have you had an ascension or something and you didn't tell us?
Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm here on the next level. Saying hi.
Well, it's wonderful. Can you?
Yes, it's great here.
Just going to take over the workshop and tell me how I can join you quickly.
Yeah. No, I had to take the dog out. He was going insane, so that's why I'm following the class.
You're doing very well. Let me just check things here. Ingrid Oppen, can't even pronounce the word. We have someone here. Hang on, asked to unmute. That's appeared. Or is this you again? Do you have two two devices, Ingrid, and you've got different names on them? Well, now we lost the original Ingrid. Oh, well, we've just got a mystery. Okay, we'll leave it as a mystery for the moment. We have a new person, which I haven't let into the waiting room, suddenly appearing out of nowhere. I think it's the same Ingrid with two different names. Any comments so far as we got in the workshop?
Yeah, I can say I think it's difficult, of course, like everyone else, I guess. Yeah, and it's interesting to see where one gets triggered. What one gets triggered with in the other person is usually, well, for me at least, usually a projection of something I feel bad for in myself.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all it is. The last thing we want to see, which means the end of victimhood, the end of justified anger. Big price to pay, huh?
Yeah.
Ingrid, there's another Ingrid on the screen here. Is that your other phone or something, or other computer?
Yes. I will just I will
That's
go
okay.
into the, I just had to go out, so I just left both open. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Oh, it's not an interruption. I just got two different names, so I got a little confused there. Fine, another problem solved. I'm sure my problems are solved so easily. Good. Any other feedback or comments or sharings or stories? Okay. Well, we'll proceed a bit more now into sickness. And from that, we'll go then into an exercise, I think. So if there's no questions at the moment, we'll bring the share screen back up again. Just trying to find the right picture here. Okay. So we're now getting into issues around problems in the body. Sounds like Ingrid's coming back in. I'll give her just a moment. So we're talking here about projection, which is what we do when we don't forgive. I'll just look at the screen while Ingrid appears again. Okay, I'll make a start. The Course says that when we thought we separated from God, we ended up feeling rather guilty. It felt very odd to leave the oneness of heaven. And the guilt was overpowering. And we bury it. This is the unconscious guilt in this iceberg here. But it still operates, especially when it's triggered. It can be triggered so easily. Just somebody looks at us a bit funny or just says a sentence the wrong way, or we see something in the newspaper, and we get triggered. And that's what we're seeing here. Now, the ego always rushes to our fence. I always know how to help you. Just first deny there's anything wrong with you. There's nothing to be guilty about. The problem's in the world, because it knows if you turn to your mind for the solution, you'll find the Holy Spirit. And one day you'll just believe the Holy Spirit, and it's the death of the ego. So the ego always says, no, the problem's not in the mind, it's out here. Most of the time, it's other people, what they've said, what they're doing, their behavior, their criticism of you, or they ignore you. I mean, there's every variety you like. And these are the ones that are responsible for my anger, my sadness, my frustration. The ego says, well done, you found something out there. But some people, perhaps more of a minority, they project onto their own body. And their body becomes sick. Ego's equally happy. You think the problem's outside your mind, in your body. You take it on yourself. You never show your anger, and the anger eats away at you, and you come up with a serious illness. You hide your jealousy, and you start developing a skin rash. You know, your anger comes out another way. But the problem is not in my mind. It's out here. We are innocent. So obviously, we've got to reverse directions here. Let's see a little bit what the Course says. Sickness is of the mind and has nothing to do with the body. Healing involves an understanding of what the illusion of sickness is for. Healing is impossible without this. Healing is accomplished the instant the sufferer no longer sees any value in pain. What a statement, eh? We'd rather be in pain and come back into the mind and find something to forgive. We'd rather be a victim. The body's health is fully guaranteed because it's not limited by time, by weather or fatigue, by food and drink, or any laws you made it served before. These were the people I was mentioning. Prahad Jahani never eat or drank. There's that guy who can sit for 2 hours in ice water and climb to the top of Mount Everest in trunks. Cold did not affect him. These are the laws we've made up. And with these laws, we become victims. So how do we get out of this? Forgiveness. The Course says no one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them. For not looking is the way they are protected. There's no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. You need self-honesty. When you get upset, there's the red flag. Forget the person, forget the weather, forget the government, forget the vaccine, forget the EMFs. Come back, come back. So forgiveness is looking without judgment of what's just been triggered. One of the summaries of forgiveness is still and quietly does nothing. It merely looks and waits and judges not. Doesn't do anything. He says, oh, anger, oh, jealousy. How interesting. I'm glad I've discovered that. I didn't know I was an angry person. Oh, and that softens part of the iceberg and it floats off and melts. Acceptance is part of love, and only love heals. But you have to see it. So stop looking in the world. Thank the world, thank the mirrors. It's here. The story I like telling on workshops, but some of you don't know it. While at Findhorn, married to Celise, the first Gulf War, we had light groups at Findhorn. And in times of trouble, they'd come together and send light to the area. There was some problems because some thought they should send it to the victims and some thought they should send it to the persecutors, and some said the trouble is when you're doing light groups, you can start playing God, you see. And she didn't know whether she should join a light group and help with the Gulf War. Celise was born a channel. She always had an inner voice. And her guide came to her and said, so what is it about Saddam Hussein that upsets you? Well, he's a dictator. He takes what he wants. He wants something, he doesn't care. He just goes for it. And he says to her, do you ever do any of that? Well, I don't know. And then brought up Michael, me. Do you ever try and control your husband? And she did it through passive anger. She just wouldn't talk to me for a day or two. Very powerful. And she said, yes. And then she was showing a picture of a mountain. Saddam on top was rotating with a very tall mirror, and the world was at the bottom. And he said, until you learn to heal the dictator in you, you will always have dictators in your world to show you. Once you've healed this in yourself, war will be impossible on your planet. There will be no dictators. What you see in the world is just but a mirror of what's in the collective mind. 9 billion people have a tendency to believe in victimhood, justified anger, attack. And what you get in the world is war after war. So change is one person at a time. As you forgive, the collective projection from the mind changes. And when enough people change, war will be impossible. Someone may try to start it, it won't start. The world, the outside world, the Course teaches, is just a projection of what's in your mind on a collective basis. No politician will bring peace. No peace treaty will bring peace. Nothing will bring peace until everyone, enough people at least, forgive and change. No, that was a strong one. We're getting close to the exercise now, where we work on all this stuff. Any comments? Okay, I'll summarize the 3 stages of forgiveness that the Course often talks about with a picture, and then we'll shift into the exercise. We can start to use this. This could be on physical pains, could be on psychological pain. So let's have a last few pictures to sum up forgiveness. Okay, the first stage of forgiveness. Above the line is the usual representation in the world, pointing finger, you hurt me in some way. The first stage of forgiveness is to take the projections back by seeing them as a mirror to what is unhealed in your mind. Thank you for showing me what is unhealed here. This is not easy, but this is the path to peace, to joy, and a healthy body. If these people are obnoxious, they've just broken into your car, set fire to your house, and killed your husband, that's pretty strong, isn't it? You would still have compassion for them. Yes, that'll be a Jesus level, but that's where we're going. It's either compassion or anger. So if you complete the first stage, it's, wow, thanks, Hitler. Thanks, Saddam Hussein. I didn't realize you were inside me. Without you, I wouldn't have a chance to heal the dictator. Second stage. The ego is very unhappy with the first stage. It's sulking in the corner, but here's its chance. You've now found out you're the jealous one, you're the hateful one. Ego rushes in. Well, I told you, you were nothing, you were terrible. Now we have the evidence. You're just this angry, jealous person. If you don't watch out, you say, I'm the guilty child of the ego. This can be a more difficult stage than the first stage. Guilt descends. Guilt is a sure sign you're listening to the ego, because the Holy Spirit would never give you guilt. You could be stuck here quite a while. until you realize that you're just listening to the ego a second time. How can the holy child of God be guilty? It's eternal, formless, perfect. All this is just happening in a dream. And when you wake up from a dream, and in the dream you'd murdered someone, you just laugh. You say, oh my God, I've murdered no one. You can't harm the Christ in anyone. It's impossible. There's no time in heaven. That means there's no change. So you can't change anything. Harming the Christ is someone is change. When that dawns that you've been listening to the ego once again, and you've sent out your prayer for help, and it descends upon you because you've asked. Prayer is very powerful when it's used in the right way. And you say, no, sir, I'm the guiltless, sinless child of God. Please take my guilt. All day long, the angels are walking behind you with their hands out saying, please give me your guilt. And you'll say, maybe tomorrow. And we'll say, we'll follow you until the day comes. And you say, why am I carrying this? I don't have to do anything, but just decide I don't want it. The Holy Spirit asks you but this: bring to him every secret you have locked away from him, open every door to him, and bid him enter the darkness and lighten it away. At your request, he enters gladly. He brings the light to the darkness. If you make the darkness open to him, that's the line. See the darkness and then decide you want to give it away. Why is that difficult? What if your jealousy is keeping your partnership together? Every time you just glance at someone else, your partner notices it and they're really upset, they're really jealous. You're thinking of having sex with that person? Oh, this is terrible. And you're a bit upset, but secretly, oh my God, I really can affect him, can't I? That's really bonding. I like that. And then one day he lets his jealousy go. Well, I can understand you being sexually attracted to others, and you don't like that because you've mistaken jealousy for love. And you then find that you want to separate and go and find some other jealous person. So in the second stage, you realize that if you give it away, your life is going to change. What if you're a rescuer? All your friends are victims. You spent your whole life listening to them on the phone, going around cooking them meals, taking their children out all the time. Everyone thinks you're a saint. And then realize one day you're attacking them. You're making them dependent on you. In fact, you don't even want them to heal. You see this, they ring you up and say, sorry, Mary, don't feel like talking tonight. And you do that for a few days. At the end of the week, you've got no friends. They say, we thought she was so wonderful, a saint, and now we know who she really is. But John down the road, he's happy to listen to me and take my children and cook my meals, and they all rush off to another rescuer. And you're left with no friends. And you know that will happen. And you've got to have the guts to say, okay, in time, I will have different friends, higher vibration friends. I've got to do this. I can't keep on living this way. And that's your life. You go up on a plateau, friends change, all sorts of things change, and you march on again. Do you have the courage to keep doing what Spirit calls you to do? So, before I start the exercise, any questions or sharings?
Yeah. If it is, I don't know if this is connected to the healing session. I kind of feel if it is, if it's not appropriate, then just I will ask you another time. But I've been doing so. What I understand here, we are the creators of our field here, right? Of
Right.
this dream plane that we are on. And as Tina Louise Boulding has said before, like God doesn't have so much to do with it. We are using his creative force to create our reality.
Yep.
Yeah. And
God
that
doesn't
was
know about this place. God doesn't know about the universe. God doesn't know about this universe.
yes, and that has been like a comfort for me, because then I understand that we are in a way kids left unattended, learning slowly, slowly, slowly.
We're in the sandbox throwing sand at each other. Yeah.
Yes, and it takes a lot of time for us to understand, right? And then on lesson 2, and then I read this book.
Ah, yeah.
I'm doing this with the lessons,
Me too.
and then it says God has allowed it to happen.
Okay.
Our
Jesus is not consistent with his language. This was picked up when I was first studying with Dr. Kenneth Wapnick. He says, don't expect Jesus to be consistent with language, but he is consistent with meaning. For example, it says in the course, God does not hear our prayers because he doesn't have sense organs. He's only aware of what he created, which is eternal and formless. And then the last half of the workbook is asking us to pray to God.
yes,
Complete contradiction. And I could sit here for 10 minutes giving all these contradictions. One of the reasons is that the course is written on different levels because we're on different levels. Now, let's take a traditional Catholic that's been conditioned to think that God thinks you're a sinner and you only have to make a little mistake and you get punished. And it could be eternal hell for eating a sausage on Friday and other such ridiculous nonsense, which we believe in because deep down we do feel guilty. And so we tend to believe all this stuff. So you read in the course, God misses us. God is sad that we have left home. He even says, and God cries that we are not there. God cries, so he's got a body, he's got eyes, large body, must have a very large toilet somewhere in the universe. You know, it gets a bit ridiculous as you go into this. But if you've been, say, indoctrinated as a heavy Catholic, he misses us. He's sad. He's not going to punish us. He just wants me to come home. How beautiful. Oh, that's so lovely to hear. While someone who's got deep into the course is saying, what? What nonsense is he saying here? You know, he cries, he's got a body, he misses us. He knows sadness. That's an ego attribute, you know. What's gone wrong here? And then with time, you realize there's these different languages in the course. And people really light up for some. And after a while, they grow beyond it and say, well, of course he can't hear our prayers, you know. Why should he fix our bank account? He doesn't know anything about money. He doesn't even know about the universe. He just knows perfect oneness. Definition of heaven is perfect oneness. But we need to hear he misses us. He's going to look after us. He wants us home. We want comforting words. So they put them in. But for a purist, Course in Miracles person, it can drive you mad. So we forgive Jesus.
thank you.
Okay, what we're going to do now, get Alex back because we're going to do a forgiveness exercise. I know he's trying to escape, but no, just joking. I would escape sometimes if I was going to be given a forgiveness exercise. So what we're going to do now is just relax, find a comfortable position and close our eyes. Let's take a few deep breaths to begin with. Let's become aware of any sounds around you and just accept them. Just become aware of the seat or bed that you're sitting on. Bring yourself into the present moment, forgetting the busyness of the workshop. And with the next breath, breathe it in, into the legs, tense the muscles of the legs, and then relax. With the next breath, tense the muscles of the stomach and release. Breathe into the arms, make fists of the hands, and let go. Breathe in and squeeze the shoulder blades together, and then relax. If your head and neck are a bit tense, you can move your head around. Surround you now is such a presence of love and healing that knows everything about you, but has absolutely no judgment of you. Just wants to wake you up from nightmares, to bring you closer to remembering you're the Christ, the eternal, beautiful form of spirit. It knows you better than you know yourself. But it believes in free will. So give out a silent prayer of welcome. Please join me in this exercise. Please help me in this exercise to forgive and be at peace. Now you may already be aware of some physical or psychological issue where you want healing. Or if you're not sure, you could turn to your guides. Doesn't matter what words, Holy Spirit, God, Jesus, Mary. Just say, what is it that I need healing? Where am I losing my peace at the moment? And you can be shown something. Maybe somewhere where you thought you already had forgiven. Or perhaps you have a problem, a physical problem. There's a pain in the body you're feeling now. You need to feel it now. You may wish to deal with that. And you can bring your awareness now to that problem and feel it in the body. But if it's a psychological problem, bring your awareness to that, to your anger, your sadness, your hatred, your lack of self-worth, whatever. Welcome it. Look at it, be with it. Don't try and fix it. That's not your business to fix it. Your business is to find it and accept it. You created this for a reason, and that's okay. You're holding the hand of your guide, or the light streaming into you. You're feeling the pain, physical or psychological. Psychological, you can bring back perhaps an argument the last time you're with the person when something seemed to go wrong. Bring the feelings back. It's all right to be emotional, to feel sad, to feel hatred. Nothing can harm the Christ in them or you. If you can, put an accepting hand over that area of the body. I accept you. Investigate further. How big is this pain? Where does it start and stop? What shape is it? How deep does it go into the body, or does it sit on top? You see a color there? Does it feel any hotter or colder than the rest of the body? Just say, I accept you. I created you. Turn to spirit now and say, Spirit, give me a picture, a symbol that describes this pain. Don't try and make one. Just see something arise. This describes this pain, this lack of forgiveness. See what comes. And accept that picture. It's your teacher. Be grateful you're given a picture. No picture, just keep accepting it. Usually you get a picture. Do you want to keep that picture? Does it serve you some way? You need this pain in some way. Perhaps you feel it protects you. Or is it time to be free now? And with it will come a different life, which may be a little disturbing to begin with, but you know you must walk forward. Do you want to keep it, or do you want to be free? Either answer is fine. Might seem like an old friend you carried so long. Somehow it protects you. But if it is time to be free, turn back to the guides. Please heal and transmute and change this picture into a healed symbol. And see what happens. If you get a new symbol, do you want to keep that? Or do you want the old one? Your choice. No right or wrong. Are you happy to take the new symbol or afraid? See two doors in front of you. Above the left door is the old symbol. Above the right door is the new. Through those doors are different lives, different paths. Open the door and go through the door you feel comfortable with. See what's behind there. Your guide walks with you. When you feel ready, as far as you've got, bring yourself back to the room before we move into sharing pairs. When we move into the rooms, choose A and B. A will share anything they like for 5 minutes, and B just listens without speaking. B is the timekeeper. At 5 minutes, you swap over. At 10 minutes, you'll get a signal the room will close in 2 minutes. Just carry on sharing, and you'll be brought back to the room. The pairs will obviously stay together in one room. I'll open the rooms.
Do you stop recording, Michael?
Yeah. It doesn't record in the rooms anyway.